So yesterday we talked about Steven Crowder and his feud with the Daily Wire. For those of you who don't know, Steven Crowder put out a video a couple of days ago where he was talking about an offer that he had received and clauses in the contract that he didn't like. I'll go ahead and just post a link to my original video in the description. But anyway, it turned out the offer was from the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire made a response to that video, clarifying their position, and basically went over line per line of the entirety of the contract and kind of their side of it versus his side of it. I talked about it, I went over it, and I kind of came down in if I had to make a decision on who's right or who's wrong, I said, basically I'm signing with the Daily Wire, but it's like a 60-40. I think Steven Crowder made a lot of good points, and I could see his point of view. Even if I didn't necessarily think it was correct, I could at least see where he's coming from. I could see that his point of view was well thought out and had value and merit. So, but then it didn't stop there. Steven Crowder went ahead and did a response to the Daily Wire's response to the original video that he had made, and now things have turned again. And has my mind changed one way or the other? Well, we'll talk about that. But let's talk about this video he made. So, I've got a couple major points, and first I'm going to start off by saying that Steven Crowder, he said multiple times, it's not about the money. And he was trying to paint the Daily Wire as they were focusing on this dollar amount of $50 million, which was the contract amount he was offered, which would have been broken down to $12 million a year. And then there would have been a penalty structure if, say, Steven Crowder's demonetized. If there's a boycott, he ends up losing over 50% of his sponsorships. And basically, if the show starts losing money, his revenue would see a decrease. Which I had said in the last video I thought was fair. I mean, if his show is making less money, then there's less money to pay him for his show. That's just the math and reality of it. He didn't like that. And his point of view, which I do think holds a little bit of water, is you're empowering the people who are in charge of those boycotts. You're empowering them to come and boycott my show, knowing that type thing could work. Well, yes and no. One, like I said before, they wouldn't have, those boycotters may not have known that clause in your contract had you not aired it over the internet. Also, that's the risk that everyone takes. I think that's doing this for a living, is that you run afoul of a group like this, that they try to organize against you, and you just have to, fortify your position. And there's a lot of grace in that period. One, they gave him like a 60-day grace period or a 90-day grace period to, for the boycott to simmer down, for them to replace the sponsorships or whatever. And he would have to lose half of his sponsors. And I just don't know that necessarily would have happened. So there's that. And then there's the narrative that Steven Crowder's putting out there. I don't know who he's doing this for anymore, because all I see him doing is empowering the people that he says he's trying to fight against. He says he's doing this against these people. He's, his slogan is fight like hell. Well, the people you're fighting like hell against are running with the story and using it to trash conservative talk media. Far right. I mean, I just Googled Steven Crowder's name, and this is what comes up. Far-right blowhard calls $50 million a day Daily Wire offer a slave contract. Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, right-wing media, ugly feud just turned ugly. Ben Shapiro shreds despicable Steven Crowder, and right-wing feud gone wild. Right-wing, all of this is just attacking. And this website that Steven Crowder created, the Big Con, this term, Media Matters, the Huffington Post, they are running with it. Conservative media, thanks to Steven Crowder, has been given the title The Big Con, which is this kind of double entendre of big conservative, and also it's a big con because they're fake. They're just in it for the money. They're trying to just gin people up so they can get a paycheck. That's what Steven Crowder, the narrative, put out there. And by God, the people who he would say are his rivals, the people he aims his ire at, are running with it. He has given the left-wing media more ammunition to lash out at him and his peers at than anything that I've seen in the past. So at this point, I have to think that Steven Crowder is doing more harm than good to his own cause. And that's compounded with the fact that in the video, he released a phone call that was supposed to be a private conversation between him and Jeremy Boring, the co-CEO of Daily Wire, where he says some things. He uses the term wage slaves, which isn't a great term, but he's basically saying, new talent comes in, they have to get essentially an entry-level working wage while they work their way up. And then, once their contract is up, they can leave, taking the fame that they had made of the Daily Wire with them, or they could stay and renew their contract for more money, whatever they want to do. And the thing is, he released this phone call, and it's Jeremy Boring saying these things, but it's nothing that either A, Steven Crowder didn't reveal in his first video, or B, Jeremy Boring denied saying. So he basically burned his friend for literally no reason at all. No new information came out of it. It didn't paint either one of them or it didn't paint Jeremy Boring certainly in any worse light, because it was all stuff we'd already heard. It was stuff he didn't deny. It just made Steven Crowder look like a bad friend for recording a phone conversation and then putting it on the internet for everybody to hear. I mean, I don't know how else to take that. So he's burned the bridge that he had with the Daily. I mean, any chance of reconciling with the Daily Wire at this point, I have to think that's done. So there is this schism now in conservative talk between, Crowder and the people that are supporting him and the Daily Wire and people support them. That's not good for anybody. I mean, especially Steven Crowder. He talks about, it's a movement. We're trying to fight back for the country. Are you though? Are you at this point? At this point, it looks like you're trying to create a mailing list. That's what it looks like to me, because you're not doing anything to help the quote unquote movement. This doesn't help the movement. Doing this behind closed doors would have at least preserved the movement. All you've done is given the opponent of your movement this term, the big con. I've heard this term on CNN and MSNBC 3 times today, the big con. So congratulations. That's the most contribution you've given to the left in a long time. And you've given them a lot of talking points to use over the past, Mr. Crowder. And, I don't know you. I have no illusion that he's ever going to see this video, but somebody really needs to sit down with him and let him know this isn't good what you're doing. This isn't helping. This isn't helping your situation. This isn't helping the Daily Wire. This isn't helping the cause that you're talking about. And then he talks about doing this for the young up and comers that want to come after him. He's doing this for the little guy. Well, how is this helping them? You're talking about, making the Daily Wire pledge that they'll never have these clauses in their contract. Well, you again, if a show is losing revenue, they're not going to keep paying them a high price to keep it. That's not how it works. I mean, you're right wing. That's capitalism. What are we talking about here? You really want that? You really want the Daily Wire to treat its shows like the government treats the post office? No matter how much money it loses, we're just going to keep funding it normally. I mean, that's not the values that you talk about. That's not the values that you aspire. So whether or not this has changed my mind more or less towards him or Daily Wire at this point, I'm more in the Daily Wire's camp at this point. Before I thought it was pretty even with the Daily Wire, just edging it a bit, just because they were very transparent. Their counter arguments to everything Steven Crowder made sense. I think they addressed all of his concerns really well, but that wasn't to say that I thought that Steven Crowder initially had any flaw in his argument or anything that he said was invalid. I just thought it was they had a good reason for all the things that they did, I felt. And I agreed with more of what the Daily Wire was saying than Steven, but only by a little bit. But now I don't understand why this is still going. I don't know what he's trying to accomplish other than harming the movement that he says he's fighting for. And he just really needs to stop. I mean, I'm under no illusion that he's ever going to see this video. Like I said, I mean, I'm a small time YouTuber. But hopefully there's somebody has his ear and will point out to him that he's at this point, he's harming his own brand. He's harming conservative talk media. He's harming the Daily Wire, who we're supposed to be, in this together with. I don't understand who you're making friends with now or what good this is going to do. Going forward, there's going to be a split in conservative media. That's just going to lower your ratings, of Louder with Crowder. It's going to lower the ratings of Daily Wire because people are going to pick sides. And they're going to unsubscribe to one and subscribe to the other and vice versa. So, yeah, at this point, this just needs to stop. If he says in his video, just pick up the phone and call me, let's have a conversation. Well, honestly, Crowder, why are they going to do that? You're going to record the conversation for why? More content? I wouldn't pick up the phone and call. Why? So that you can air more dirty laundry on the internet? No, not at all. All of that is burned. All of that is done. I think the only way that this gets repaired at this point is Crowder gets back online and seriously dials this back and probably has to eat a little humble pie and say some words of apology and at least heal that chasm. I don't think that the relationship between Louder with Crowder and Daily Wire will ever be a thing again, but you could at least, put the whole of conservative alternative media back together. I think you owe at least that much for the damage that you've done to it. So I'm coming down a lot more on Crowder than I did the last time. Last time I didn't really come down on him at all. This time he's not looking like a person who's got a direction. He's, other than growing a mailing list, he doesn't look like he's fighting for a cause, because he's just damaging the cause that he says he's fighting for. I don't know how to go forward with this. I know a lot of people are still on his side, and I can see from the creative's point of view the points that he's making, the arguments that he's making. I get it. But at the level that Steven Crowder operates, he's a businessman. You got to think that way. You got to think of, he keeps saying it's not about the money. Well, it is kind of, because you're not going to win this war without the money. I mean, his fight like hell, you can't fight with no resources. So yeah, it is still kind of about the money. You've got to say it's not is intellectually dishonest. It's disingenuous, and it's nonsense. And let's get the adults back in the room and go back to just, talking about politics, conservative politics, whatever. I can go back to talking about comic books, video games, and movies and stuff like that, and just put this to bed. But I want to know what you guys think. Did you watch all 3 videos now? That's a lot of watching. I think the shortest of those videos was his response. It still clocked in at like 20, 25 minutes. And then Jeremy Boring's was like an hour. But if you saw him, I'm curious whose side everybody's on this. I was very much on the fence, just kind of leaning a little bit into Daily Wire's camp. Now I'm a lot more into Daily Wire's camp, because Steven Crowder is seeming more and more unreasonable. And honestly, I don't like I don't like taking a private phone call and putting it out for everybody to see. That's that's dick move. I have to say. I lost respect for that. I didn't at the time. I hadn't lost any respect for anybody throughout this whole thing, but that one move, just because, I don't know, maybe it's just a personal thing, maybe it's a guy thing, I don't know. But if somebody went out, to a group of our friends or our coworkers and played a conversation or showed a bunch of texts that were supposed to be private, I wouldn't take that well. That wouldn't sit well with me at all. So I don't think that's something that a good person does. But let me know what you guys have to say in the comments below. We'll talk about it. And while you're down there, do all the usual stuff. Hit like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. I'd love to have you here. Again, I'll post my link to the original video in the description below, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye for now.